How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.
India versus Australia in a men's ODI knockout on a devilishly slow surface. Haven't we been here before? The narratives write themselves, even though the personnel might have changed from 2023 to 2025. Irrespective, it's a mouth-watering semi-final one on the line. And we build up to it on Maruti Suzuki Arena, presents ESPN Cricinfo Match Day, where we have the company of Sanjay Manjrekar in our studios and also Anil Kumble joining us. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Baggage is a word that is definitely doing the rounds outside. For everyone on the outside, that is the big thing. They still remember 19th of November as if it happened yesterday. How much of it is a factor, Sanjay, on the inside?
See, amongst all the teams in the tournament, India would not want to face, the team that they would find the hardest team to beat or the toughest opposition despite New Zealand's, overall strength is Australia. Purely because come the big night, it's one team in the world that just seems to just raise its game, unlike, say, South Africa, to an extent New Zealand, who are not able to win the big matches. So that trait of Australia is something that Indians would worry about, and I guess Indian fans too.
Yeah, Anil, every time this matchup presents itself, especially in the business end of a big tournament, it is important to point out that the last crunch meeting was actually at the T20 World Cup, where India's win over Australia led to their elimination in the Super 8s. But the psychological factor does seem to be a big one on the outside. How much of that is offset by the fact that this is a very different Australian side, which is missing a lot of its serial winning regulars?
It's a different Australian side, and also it's a semi-final. I think the semi-final sort of India has always done better. I know in Australia, India lost to Australia in that semi-final, but somehow I get a feeling that if it's a final and there's a trophy that's sitting there, just outside the boundary line, that's when Australia sort of lift themselves. But on this surface, I would back India to get the better of Australia. Australia does have just that one regular spinner in Adam Zampa. They have the batting, though. They have some serious batting in terms of experience, in terms of quality. But I still would believe that India should get the better of Australia in the semi-final.
Yeah, that's the psychological side of it done. Let's focus on the skills. And Anil brings up Adam Zampa, such a key factor. Also important to point out, Australia will play in Dubai for the first time, having played their tournament in Pakistan so far. You feel like those 10 overs of Zampa are very crucial, but equally crucial, those other 10 overs of spin which Australia will try to manage among their others, and how India tackle that.
See, I think this four spinners that India played in the last game against New Zealand just makes India that much more formidable, difficult to beat, because you're looking at Zampa's 10 overs of spin, but Australia will be looking at 40 overs of good spin. And there's no weak link there. Zampa has not troubled India so much. I know he's got a good record as a wrist spinner off late, but then they'll have to expect Maxwell to rise to the occasion, whether Australia think of playing Sangha, the other wrist spinner, but against India, they might not take a call, which is pretty radical in a big game. So just this sudden, look to the bowling attack that India has, and the kind of batters India have. Maxwell will not be the same force that he is on flat pitches, on a pitch like this. Josh Inglis, who played one of the best Champions Trophy innings that we've seen, on this kind of a pitch against four spinners, you've got to start looking at him differently. Labuschagne, Steve Smith are guys who are used to it, maybe to an extent carry as well. But the four spinners now that India will play against Australia, they'll have their work cut out as a batting unit.
Anil, let's close out that bowling thread for India. Varun Chakravarti has obviously made himself impossible to drop after the kind of game he had against New Zealand. Are you too persisting with the four spinners?
Yes, I don't think the surface to change in the next one day. It's not going to change from what we saw against New Zealand. So I would suggest, or I would think that India would go with four spinners, and Varun Chakravarti will certainly play. I don't see the only chance perhaps is Shami. I mean, he did get hit on his shoulder, but he looked fine when he bowled. So I don't see that also a problem. So India, I feel, will go with the same playing 11 against Australia and not look to bring in another fast bowler because the surface and the conditions certainly suit these four spinners. And like Sanjay mentioned, all four are quality spinners. So 40 overs of good spin bowling, plus you have the option of 20 overs of pace. I don't think India need to worry too much.
All right, let's turn our attention to the Indian batting now, and especially if they were to be setting a target for Australia. Zampa's 10 overs aside, you're looking at three relatively inexperienced pacers and 10 overs to be made up out of Maxwell, Short, Head, Labuschagne. It's important for India to not repeat the mistake of 2023 and make the most of those 10, 20, 30 overs.
You've got to be careful though, because these seemingly part-time spinners on this pitch can be a little tricky because this pitch is not just turning, it's a bit slow as well, so not easy to play shots. So India's got to be careful to not look at them and look at an opportunity to cash in. Seam bowler Spencer Johnson had a good game last game. Got to be wary of his swinging delivery that he pitches up. Nathan Ellis has been the standout bowler. But it's not an attack that is going to give Indian batters sleepless nights, considering the pitch that we have. So it's going to be about Indian batting. Indian batting is still a concern. On a pitch like this, we saw only Shreyas Iyer and Hardik Pandya play quality innings. I know Akshar Patel contributed, but India's top three batters out of the five failed, and they can't have a poor batting day. If that happens, then Australia come into the game. Enough runs on the board, and the Indian bowling attack will, I think, make it count.
So to that point, Sanjay, what to you is the ideal template for India's top three for India to make the most out of the conditions, especially if they were batting first?
Now, I think the question is Rohit Sharma, really. How does he go about? Because Shubman Gill will play the way he does, Virat Kohli exactly the same, and Shreyas Iyer will bat like he's done. We'll get to KL Rahul later. But Rohit Sharma could look at this as an opportunity to maybe think a little long term. Because this is not a pitch where you want to go in and get 350. But Rohit Sharma is a good player of spin. And down the order, if he stays long enough for all the spinners to come in and bowl, we've seen his strike rate actually earlier in the show, where against pace and spin is the same. Yeah. Can't say that of all the Indian batters. So there is an incentive for him to bat a little longer.
Anil, is that due consideration for you?
I think, the Indian batters, this was one off where the three batters got out cheaply. I mean, if you look at the top order, everyone sort of averages almost 50 runs, or if not more, in one-day cricket. And that's something that you don't get to see that often. So, yes, I agree that, someone like a Rohit Sharma, if he can bat till the 20th over, especially in the semi-final, then he'll look to kick on, and he will bat the same way. I don't see him coming there and then taking his time. It's just that you want him to bat from for India's sake, that he bats not just at 10 overs and gets India off to a great start, and that's what he's done. But you want him to go beyond that and go slightly deeper. You don't, if he can do that, then the rest of the batters, if India bat till 20 overs, India will certainly be around that 100 mark. There's no way that they will be lesser on any kind of surface. So it's just a matter of ensuring that you just get past that and not necessarily think of a 300. It depends on the surface. If it is the same, maybe slightly better, like how when India played Pakistan. If that kind of a surface, then maybe you need to look at 270, 280 if you're batting first, and not just the 240 or 250, because that's something that you need against an Australian side. Because whatever the surface, Australia will look to come hard, especially in the first 10 overs. Irrespective of the surface, irrespective of who the bowler is, Travis Head or a Matthew Short or whoever is opening with Travis Head will certainly look to come hard at India.
It's games like these and potentially tricky situations in games like these for which you resort to that insurance of a longer batting lineup. If India were to lose a few early wickets, those numbers 5 to 8 in whatever order they come in will have a huge role to play.
Yes, and I think each batter out there has had his time in the middle. I know KL Rahul didn't get too many in the first couple of games, but he had one good innings, and Shreyas Iyer is looking good. Shubman Gill's failures are rare, so we can expect him to come good. So batting depth is there. The only thing I'm concerned about with Indian batting is the nature of the pitch. India sometimes can get caught, in a bit of, as we know, in the World Cup final 2023, when the pitch was turning and a bit slow, India tend to not be at their best. So that is the only concern I have. So that is why it's very important for India to have batters who are good against slow turning balls, or just medium paces, taking the pace off.
All right, one final question to both you gentlemen. One matchup or one phase in the game which you feel will have the biggest bearing on the outcome. Let's start with you, Anil.
Oh, I think it's going to be the middle phase. I think with Maxwell and Kuldeep Yadav, or a spinner, Varun Chakravarti. I think that'll be the biggest thing.
Somebody get Travis Head out, whoever that is, because he's one guy that India will really want back in the dressing room very quickly. So that is going to be the moment for me, Travis Head.
Yes, 2023 World Test Championship final, 2023 ODI World Cup final, even the 2024 T20 World Cup encounter, and of course the Border Gavaskar Trophy that followed. Each of those, Travis Head has left his mark. As a result of which, he's also left his mark on Indian followers, and they tend to dread him all the time. Let's see if the story changes this time. Thank you so much, Anil Kumble and Sanjay Manjrekar, for setting up the game for us. Be sure to catch the build-up to the game just before toss time on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricinfo Match Day.
How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.